Hello there, and welcome to yet another Tana interview. My last one was quite a long time ago, and this time I found Trey here volunteering to join me on this interview. Trey, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Andre. My name is Trey Sizemore. I live in the US. Am a relatively new Tana user, and am excited about the possibilities of the solution and what I've seen so far. Because my background is I have a day job, I have a side job that I work as well for some personal projects and some personal items. So being able to bring everything together is really important. So uh, loving what I'm seeing so far with Tana and Andre. Ran across you and Tana and the great work that you do with the Tana templates that you build and the AI, and it's really exciting. So happy to be here today.
Very nice to have you. Do you use the same Tana for all of like the different jobs and your personal life? Yeah.
Yeah, ideally, yeah, that's the thing is it's nice to be able to just kind of bring everything together into one view and be able to kind of switch easily between, different things as I transition from my day job to later in the afternoon working on some of the side hustle work or personal projects on the weekend. So yeah, all together.
Yeah, that was a real unlock for me too. Like having everything in one go. It's not like life has these barriers and that one stops when the next starts. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, absolutely.
And if I understand correctly, you were playing with both my template Orbital and with the template of Andrea Studio OS, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And if I also understand it, you liked bits of both, and were trying to integrate them together. Can you share a bit more about the parts you were excited about and what you would like the combination to be like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ran across yours first and really was like, wow, this is beautiful. It's very functional. There's so many great things to it. Aesthetically it looks very nice. The AI that you have baked in, things like being able to add things, very quickly to the library, being able to some of the buttons that you had built in to tie into things like event link and bring my calendar in. That's the challenge I have right now is I have multiple calendars across different Gmail accounts, and it's not as easy as bringing them all together into one calendar because, for example, my day job, my work calendar won't let me share that calendar out only as like seeing free and busy. It won't actually show
Mm.
me the events when I try to bring it in. So I need to be able to centralize everything like a Fantastical does or something. So using Event Link to be able to bring in those events each day so I can see what I have on the calendar. You have some great things in there with the meetings that you've got set up and some of the AI that goes along with it. So one of them was your one-on-one tag that you have, and when you have meetings, you're able to bring those up. You can see, maybe personal projects or personal goals that those people have that you can follow up on. You can see where maybe you've mentioned them in task, for example, or assign something to them or something that you remember that you want to discuss with them. It's so nice to be able to bring that up and see, oh, I'm meeting with, so and so. Here are the things I want to discuss with them. Here's some project things I can follow up with them on. Here's some personal goals that they have that I want to follow up with them as well with it. Or even just, just simple little nice touches that you've done in there too, where, if you have your people listed in there with their tags and I create a task or say I want to
Mm.
discuss something with someone and I just put their name in there, the AI goes in behind and
Yeah.
finds who that likely is and puts it in there. Just a bit nice time saver. It just removes a lot of friction from the process. So all of that's really, really nice. And I love that. I mean, even just we haven't even talked about stuff like the scratch pad and the inbox and how you have that set up, but the week view, it's all fantastic.
Yeah, for me it was a lot of like little small optimizations because I noticed that for me all of the little paper cuts I tried every time when I do something manually, I try to find a way how can I do it easier. And especially since like yeah, for me I'm in meetings all day and every meeting just bombards you with new stuff that you need to remember. And ideally, you want to do this ahead of time so you're prepared for every meeting, but it doesn't always work. And then, sort of like having it on the meeting tag that at least it's there during the meeting is a great fallback. But it also helps me prepare when I do have the time ahead. So, am I correct in
Absolutely. Yeah.
understanding that you also have a lot of one-on-one meetings with people in this regard?
Yeah, a lot of one-on-one meetings with people. So that's really important to be able to, throughout the week, everything, a lot of stuff going on. Like you mentioned, a lot of things come out of meetings, follow-ups. What did we talk about in the last meeting? Being able to go back and look at that, or with client meetings and such. So being able to see all that in one place and have all that information, like you said, it's paper cuts, right? It's these
Yeah.
little things that happen to you. And so being able to bring all that together and automate as much of that process and reference those things that have happened in previous meetings is invaluable. I love that part about it.
Yeah, and then you started exploring and found Studio OS. Oh, I don't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now you're back.
Yeah. So with Orbital, it was really nice. One of the things is again a lot of projects and tasks that I do, and it's very focused on these are things that I have to accomplish, and these are all tied to bigger tasks or bigger projects and bigger goals that I have. So that's one area that I found that was probably a little bit limiting as far as being able to see, tasks and progress and be able to tie it to overarching areas of responsibility and goals and some of that. So in searching for some other templates, you're right. Yeah, I did come across Studio S and really like that. But then there were aspects of that. I'm like, oh, this is so much easier in Andre's template. And I really love the way Andre does this. So I'm like, oh, we could just like bring these two together and I could use those aspects I like and then complement that with the some of the project focus and task focus. That would be, just absolutely ideal.
Yeah. So, and before we had this conversation, I had a quick connection with Andrea to ask if it was okay to see if we can sort of bring some of the stuff from Studio F over into Orbital. And he said he was very excited about it, and he was also working on a new template. And of course, we'll put some credit into Orbital that all of the project-based stuff or all of the overviews that we end up integrating come from him. I think the interesting part is that for my personal, like I didn't put that much project-based stuff in there because I don't use it at work. It's quite interesting. So I have always in some way succeeded to keep it at one list. And generally I do have some sort of, because in Orbital there are projects, but I don't use it as a big structure. I do notice that I'm also missing these parts at times. So I'm also excited to sort of dive into to seeing what has happened. Now
Yeah, absolutely.
I installed Studio OS in my Tana, so I'll bring that in front, and perhaps you can guide me towards some of the parts that you feel are interesting, because this is like the plain install that I got from the link. So is there a specific part that you would want to guide me to that you feel like, okay, this is the interesting part?
Yeah, I think, certainly some of the commands, the way that they're set up are very interesting in terms of, heavy AI, much like you have as well.
Hmm.
And one of the interesting ones was the ability to be able to go in, I think maybe it was under special AI commands at the top.
Yeah, got
I
it.
think it's there. And then there were some things that you could do in there, such as on your today page, when you have a list of all of your tasks and all of your projects and meetings that you have going on, like summarize that information
Mm.
for you. So you could just say, give me a brief. It's brief me was the actual button,
Brief me.
and then it would
Yeah.
go in right with some instructions and be able to pull up and say, yeah, here's everything that's going on in your day. You put that in your day super tag as it tells you there, and then it looks at all the tasks and meetings and gives you like, hey, here's a summary for your day. Here are the
Mm.
outstanding tasks that you have. Here are some meetings that you have coming up today. Here's how you can optimally, make the best use of your time today, right? Given your how many overdue tasks you have and how many meetings you have and so all of that. So it was a nice little touch to be able to have that.
So if we
Um,
sort of zoom into that and look at how it's done, this is like one of the commands that Andrea made, and basically it's an Ask AI command. And as you can see here, there's basically he's giving all of these sort of like the dashboards as entry into the AI, and based on the task, basically it's just asking, hey, this is going to be the brief that's going to go out of there. So I think in order to get something like this to work in Orbital, it's not so much the complexity of this AI command, but having the correct information that you want as the source all available. And in this case, because Andrea has this task dashboard where everything sort of flows together, he can reference that as a specific thing in his AI command. So if we look into that, I think this is what you're talking about, like the overview kind of thing that this sort of brings.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Being able to see, looking at things with the tabs there, like what it's doing, what am I due today, switching over that very easily. What do I have that's overdue? And then even within the task and within the projects, being able to see that linkage and hierarchy between them so that you have a connection, and then the buttons that are set up to, easily say, okay, well, this is currently in my, to do. Now I want to go ahead and change the task status to in
Doing.
progress and do that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So might that be a good place to start? Because I think in Orbital, if you look at Orbital, there's different types of tasks, but we don't really have this the status of a task, right? This is sort of missing, like the doing, due today, overdue, and upcoming. And I think this would be the first part to bring together, because I think if you look at this entire dashboard, I think the main thing is here, it's being grouped based on these specific attributes. And if I look into it, I think they have a status, which is not part of this one, I guess, not in the task data in the dashboard, but this is just sorting on these. And it is being sorted on its status or not, or is that the in backlog? Is that the
Well, right now
status?
that task is in backlog, so it wouldn't show up. But then when you could change it to going to, if you click like right on in backlog, you can change
Okay.
it to in progress there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And since not, so
It's
these are
hiding everything that's not being
this is
actively
this
worked
is
on right
not
now.
a sort of one-on-one connection to the status. So this is doing is in progress, and due today is probably the due date.
Due
Overdue is
date.
everything that is overdue, and upcoming is against. Is that also a query? In this case, let's go see. Yeah, so if the due date is bigger than the grandparent and it's in the backlog. Okay. So there's this whole kind of sort of like structure going on of these concepts. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Have you tried integrating some of this stuff into each other, or have you just been using the two templates and seeing what would work for you and what wouldn't?
Yeah, more just using the two templates primarily. I've looked like you've done it, like how it was set up to like
Hmm.
maybe bring it in, but I was too scared at the time to like maybe break something. So
Yeah, yeah, I know that feeling. Especially some of the templates, if you dive in, they think like, oh, some of these things are held together with fairy dust and magic. And then when you
yeah,
break one stuff, it's also very difficult if someone messes with something in the template and they say something doesn't work anymore. Then I also like, yeah, okay. It's a
yeah. What did
struggle
you
to get
do to it?
fixed.
Right.
Yeah. What did you do? It worked when you got it. Yeah.
That's right.
So I think in this case, I would start with making the simplest change possible, and that's starting with like the concept of due dates and a status. And like we can start with all of the same statuses that Andrea had and put them into here. So in progress, waiting for feedback, and that kind of stuff. So if we go into Orbital, and let me see if I can get both side by side, because that would be ideal. Let me see if I hold Command and then click, then you get them side by side. Let's see if we hide this, then we have a little bit more space. There we go. Ah, of course, we needed to go to Orbital first and then hide it. And then we go into a specific task. So if in Orbital we make a to-do, then you see that it doesn't have a due date. It does have a date, but that's something else. That's basically the date at which it is listed in the calendar. So if you drag one of these into a calendar field, then it will fill that date. And I have an after. That means that you can do stuff like, I want to do this later, set to later, and sometimes it will flow out of lists. So I think for now, it would be cool to add two things. So the due date, which is a system field, which I actually removed because I never use due dates because I try to prevent these kinds of things in my life. But yeah, here we go. Adding the due date, we'll add that there. And we're going to add a status. Status. So far, I think so good. Have you have had a lot of experience in adjusting these super tags?
Some, yeah, just trying to practice and make
Hmm.
some modifications and learn as I go. So yeah, I'm not an expert by any stretch, but I definitely been playing around with it.
Let's dive into a little bit more. We'll change the status field, and we're gonna do that in an options one, because we're gonna sort of mimic this one, right? So the predetermined options are in backlog, and then in progress, waiting for feedback. Progress, waiting for feedback, and where are we else? Oh,
There was like a done and a someday.
done, completed. I was also interested. What is the difference between done and completed?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't seen where that comes up where
There
there's a
must
distinction.
there must be a very interesting reason for that distinction. Dropped and someday. So dropped and someday. So let's start by saying that done and completed are the same because we don't know the difference yet. And this seems like a very a good way to start. Now you can add all of these icons yourself. Oh, someday, not same day. Also, we'll get an interesting difference of things. So, and then we basically have sort of copied this similar structure, only without the visual stuff. And of course, this was not the challenge. Sorry, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just going to ask while we're here, the icons he has in there, you can add the icons as you mentioned,
Mhm.
or I guess you could also maybe, I assume you could put an emoji before each of those, wondering like what the difference is.
Yeah. So what I did with a lot of these sort of issues in Tana is that, as you can see, like I am a little bit slightly on the autistic side about my icon usage, and I can show you how I actually do it. If I go to my full screen, I have an app. It's called Nucleo, and basically it is an icon library. So what you can actually do is you can, let's go and change the color to the standard color that I use. So I'll use the gray color or something like that. And then we're gonna look for any icon. So let's see, we have someday. Let's see what kind of colors he used. Backlog. It's like a very difficult thing to find like an icon for. Completed is probably easier. Let's start
Yeah.
there. This takes me days, by the way, to find the right icon. So let's not spend too much time on it. But I do want to show you how to actually do it, and it's actually very easy because say that this is like a completed task, and we're gonna pick this little icon here. The only thing you have to do is go into this one, into completed, and if you click it, you'll actually go into the icon or into the status. If you press Command K and then debug node, you get a whole option, and one of the fields is icon. And if you just drag this one into there, it will upload, and then we have an icon. It's as simple as that. And if you go back into the options, now you can see that this one has an actual icon, and then if we select it, you see the icon happen, and it's nicely inserted here. You can also use standard icons in Tana, and then it's simply as set icon. I think it's icon, generate icon. And then it will use I think, to find like a matching emoji, and it will use something like that. So this is also an option to use it. And then I think you can also do remove icon in order to get it up and running. So that's just basically how to mimic the visual style. And of course, you can just add an emoji in front of it. So if you have something in progress, you can also say, hey, progress. There's nothing there. Progress. No. Well, a projector. And that's also a small tip in Tana. If you press what is it? Semicolon in English, right? The
Semicolon.
semicolon. Then it opens the emoji picker in order to quickly add an emoji. It's sometimes easier than to do the whole other exercise. Oh, that is interesting. I haven't seen that for a long time. A bug in Tana.
Uh-oh.
Stian will be upset when he watches this back. Something got lost in the way. You see that? The
Probably, yeah.
in progress is gone. Let's
Yeah.
reload and see if it. Ah, okay. So it's not
Yeah.
not the worst in the world, but it's still there. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I wanted to say while you were doing that, the nucleo icons that you did are beautiful. Yeah, they look really good. All that work paid off. It looks so nice in there.
Yeah, for me, it creates a little bit of consistency. And I do try to use colors. So in this case, I would probably use colors in order to actually to do these things. But it was a little bit much to do it in the quick and dirty way. So now that we have a status and a due date, we can start. I'm very eager to say steal, but borrow Andrea's work and sort of create our own little task dashboard. As you can see, I think if we remove this one, we already have this open tasks sort of item here. And we could sort of adjust this one to actually mirror these. So let's see. And I think this is an easy way to do it. Like this menu that he uses above is just a view on a node. And so you can set view options. Let me see, view as, I think this is called not a side menu, but tabs.
Tabs.
Tabs. Oh God, now everything is, of course, wait, let's do this slightly different. We'll make a task dashboard. Typing is hard. We'll take this one and we'll copy it underneath, because on the task dashboard, it would be nice to have one with all of the open tasks. And then we're going to view this as tabs. And then we have open tasks as our first option. So now we're getting closer to what we're doing here. And then the first one that he has here is doing. So let's add that, doing. And this is going to be a search. And looking at his search, let's see what he did. I think it's simply where the task is set to in progress. So basically what I would be doing is convert to a search node and say it needs to be a task in this case, and it needs to have status, and it was in progress, right? Yeah, in progress.
In progress, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Which will be nothing, because unfortunately we have nothing that is in progress. But he also has this nice, okay, here's the status to done and completed. Maybe there's a difference between done and completed because he uses the command at the end to set it. So that might be the reason why he has done and completed. We have some overdue tasks, and here he has a button to make it in progress. But for now we can do, let's do the bar. Let's see that we're actually doing grocery shopping, and it should show up here. So basically we're copying these things one by one by one by one. So is there a preference of what you would like to copy next? Because like we can move to a more complicated query, or we can do this button behind. That's also maybe an interesting one.
Yeah, I think the button would be interesting to do. Again, it's a nice little time saver, removing some friction from the process.
So a button is set on the super tag. So you would go and configure the to-do tag. And there we have the AI and commands. And what we simply do is in the command palette, which is, well, I think I would have just called it buttons. But here we can say, I want to start it. Now we'll start with a little bit of a different, like just a textual button, and we'll convert it to a smaller button later. Because now you'll see that every button will get this start, but it's more visible this way. And what we actually just want to do is, instead of, when I press start, I want to set the status or the task status to in progress. And if you search here, you can set the field values in a command. We'll add a configuration, and then it simply says, okay, what field do you want to set? And I'll do this, the status field, and I want to set it to in progress. So now when we click here, it should have set it in progress. As simple as that. Very simple. What you do see is that the start button is still showing. And that's not what's happening here. You can see that this one is probably in progress, I'm assuming, or yeah, it's in progress. And now it doesn't show start, but stop or like done. So let's do that one too. What I'll do is I'll duplicate this one with this, duplicate it, and we'll make stop. Or, well, let's complete, because we named it completed. And we'll set the field to completed. And then you see, oh, now we have 2 buttons, even worse. So then there's something called a node filter. And this is becoming a little bit more in sort of the nitty-gritty of Tana. But if you see these things around, and they're called node filters, and it means basically I want to not always show this thing depending on something. So in this case, I only want to show start on a status that is not in progress. So in this case, it would be status. And then I think you can do not. Actually, I'm not 100% sure if this works. We'll find out. In progress. Let's see. We copy this one. We paste it there. Does that work? It does not. Let's do it differently. This is always like a little bit trickier. This would mean that your status, you would show it when it is a status, let's say, is not set, for instance, not set. And then you show start. And this one is a little bit easier because the complete should only show when the status is in progress. And now we see that the start button is always showing, and the complete is only showing for the things that are in progress. And where you press them, then it's gone at all. So this is like nice. How to set up these buttons. And what I generally do is I do the same thing as with these. I give these icons. So if you move and, for instance, say like, hey, let's generate an icon for this. Let's for now see. Then what happens is that these buttons become textual buttons. And if you remove the text, then just the little icon remains. So very simple way to actually get these up and running. There we go.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Very simple to get to this point. Now, of course, it's like what I always do in these cases. Since this, I keep forgetting what all of the icons mean and where they are. So generally, I put a description underneath it. So if you press Control I, you can add description to nodes. And this is, for instance, start task. And I will name this one complete task. Because and in the end, else I get very confused by everything that is going on.
So if you're in the open task now and you hover over that button, it'll show that text that you put on there?
It does, yes, exactly. Normally it should.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Maybe
that's a good point. Yeah, it's nice having that context.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Start task and complete task. Yeah, probably it needed to refresh a bit to get that thing coming on. But that's actually a very good addition, because if you don't have that, you also don't get the pop-up. And then, yeah, this is another little helper where you can actually see, hey, let's give some hints to the user, because yeah. Okay, so that's the commands, and then of course we have the due today. This is also a reasonably simple one to add in here, because it's basically, if it's today, and we're going to convert it again to a certain node, and we're going to say the due date is, and I think I don't work that much with dates, but if you go to field values for relative date and then term, and then you can simply say today, and then you can see here that actually the current date is filled in. So again, this is not really like, I think whenever I talk to people at Tana, this is the thing they really want to make simpler for many starting users, because this thing is Very powerful and very complicated. So of course nothing is showing because we don't use this yet, but since we're gonna do this, let's put this. Also a little tip, if you press space in a date field, normally it would, if you go there, press space, it would set it to today. So that's also a little tip. And there we go. So now I think we're almost to the point where we're at the same sort of the features. Here, overdue. And here you can see that the due date is smaller than the grandparent. And that's probably because the task dashboard will be on the day tag. So he put it on the day tag, and that means that the parent of this one is the task dashboard, and the grandparent will be the day tag. So this only works overdue when it's actually nested on the day tag, else it won't work. So that's an interesting one. And I'm also not quite sure, unless you always say after today. So this is overdue based on the day, but you can also say overdue based on today, and then you don't need to do this. So if we're gonna do that one, it would be overdue, convert it to a search tag. So many options. And it will be cheating. It's a task. In our case, a to-do. It is the due date is. This is also interesting. Less than. I think due date, and then is that correct? I also always struggling with these things, but I always look in the bottom here, and there you see, okay, this is how it's working. But again, this concept of the less than due date and then for relative date, the same one that we added here, then we should come close to everything that is overdue. Yeah. So there we go. And then if that is correct, then we would say, for instance, the read new book. If we put the due date to last month, there we go. It should be overdue. Yeah, so it works. Yeah.
Yeah, that made a lot of sense. Kind of seeing how you did it that way.
Yeah, it's always like when you see someone else do it, you feel it's very logical. And then I also often struggle. I open the editor and then I'm like, oh, yeah. You can, of course, just click on this one and not just use this one and open the query editor. And there you see exactly how he did it. So in that case also. And then we can also see, hey, we forgot this one because not done. If we then check this one off, it stays. And that's not what we want. So, and then we can go in and say like, hey, I also want to filter out, it needs to be not done. And then you see it disappearing. And
nice.
For due today, that's probably the same. We also don't want stuff that is due today and done. And we do the same for doing, also not done. And for the open tasks, if you can see that one, this is quite a bigger one. And it also has that not is done. And then it also only leaves us with upcoming. And let's see, this one has a due date that is later than the grandparent, or it's in the backlog, or it's on someday. So then let's do the last one, and then we're actually feature complete. What was this called? Upcoming. There we go. And we will convert this one again to a search tag or search node. We'll do the mumbo jumbo with the less than again. Less than due date for relative date today. Oh, but this one is the wrong order. It should be greater than. Oh no. Greater than this one. And then we can simply drag these over. So we don't need to rebuild them again. But then we get to the or. And if you look in, we can see that it has an or, and then each of these things is one of the or clauses. So if we go in, we do or, and then we can add this one into there, and that's just one of them. And the other one was when the status is backlog, or the status is someday. And of course, it should still be not done, I guess. Or it doesn't matter for this one. Oh, you forgot it for this one.
But it should be on there, yeah.
Yeah,
We
it
don't
should be
want
on
that to show up.
We're finding bugs. And that means that if we now schedule the team meeting, that one's completed. If we put that in the backlog, oh, not this one. There. What's happening? Too many things happening. I opened this. There we go. Upcoming. It should be here. Yeah.
Perfect.
And then we have our task dashboard, which, as you can see, if we close this one, looks very similar to Andreas, only slightly less colorful because of all of the cool colors that he added in it. One of the things I would really want Tana to do is actually to be able to lock this, so you don't have the add tab, because you can lock nodes, which I often do, because in this case you don't easily sort of like add stuff or like, oh, you can actually add stuff. Sad. But you cannot change the text anymore. So that's sometimes what I do. Okay. And then this would be something that you would place on your day tag. Is that also where you would place it?
Yeah, I would place it on the day tag, yeah.
So let's see if we can go, because I'm not quite sure if this has a date. Yeah, it has it set up. So in this case, you could add it to the standard day tag in here as a top part, or you can put it here, but I guess that's a little bit tight. So I'm guessing this would be a more logical spot for it. And in order to change that, you simply go and edit the day tag, configure tag. We'll add this one here, and we'll simply search for the task dashboard. This one, we'll add it there. And a little trick, as you can see, it's not expanded now. But if you do this and you convert it to, I'm not sure if it can do it. If you press Command K and make it a header, you cannot. Why not? Header. Interesting. Why can't I make this into a header? That is it because is it locked? Let me unlock it. Maybe it needs to be toggle. Yeah, it's sorry. Like a locked node can apparently not be a heading.
Oh.
If you make it a heading, it auto uncollapses, and then we get this. And that means that on the let me make it a little bit bigger. You'll always start each day with the task dashboard here. I think for me, this would not be something I would always have on my day tag, but I would rather probably put it in the pinned nodes here, something like this. This would be more logical from my perspective, because I try to keep this area as clean as it can, just for nodes or for whatever pops up, because in essence, Tana is still, for me, like its main note-taking system. So I would probably place it there, which is still very accessible, or I would push it here as a separate sort of scratch pad, which is also a good option.
So, yeah, I like that. Yeah, keeping it clean, using that primarily for some input, note taking, like you said, and then just but it's still very easily accessible because it's
you still have it right there, and both would be equally easy. I often have this one collapsed. So I think if this is something that I would use a lot, I would probably put it here. Have you ever seen how to put something in this area?
In the
side or bottom?
Yes. I think so. If you go to the day tag and do the configure down at the bottom, I think there's whatever it's called, advanced option. There we go.
Advanced options, indeed. And then you can simply, I'll decollapse these. And then we have my scratch pad. And if we're going to put this one over here, let's remove the heading in this case. No longer needed. Now you see that it's part of this one. It's not a little bit, because it should be here. We have to recreate this this day. It's a little bit how it, no, it's not showing. Let me see. Oh, not remove. Configure, advanced. Why is it not showing the task dashboard? Oh, I think these need, no, that's weird. Oh, here it is. Sorry. And we're going to put it in the bottom here. And then we should have what we want. Yes. And then you have both the task dashboard and the scratch pad on top of each other. And you can very easily get to it in that way. Probably this is how I would use it in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks good.
And then we get to the whole AI command. And the easy part is that you can already sort of see how this works. Because if you, for instance, use the chat with AI, and if you simply copy this one and say, brief me about my tasks, and then simply paste this in there, or actually I would do it like this, and then just ask it, it should actually, that's a little bit, it's not incorrect, but it's not really what I would want. Let's see if we can make this a little bit better. I wonder if it actually looks into these things. Maybe there's just not enough for it to make a nice overview. But if normally you can sort of do this and then just ask AI to, for instance, summarize, it should be able to give you some information. Not really what I was looking for. So I guess there's more to that brief AI command that Andrea made than meets the eye.
Yeah, I think oftentimes like,
but yeah, sorry, go for it.
oh no, I was just going to say, yeah, with the AI having to give it like explicit instructions on exactly what you're looking for and examples sometimes.
So I think we've brought like a lot more sort of like organization in tasks over into Orbital to make it more your own. Is there any other specific part that you would like to bring over? You mentioned areas. Is that something we want to go into or something else?
I think, like your meetings are really good with, the level of detail that you have. And then in Andreas's meetings, there is some additional AI that's baked into it as well, which is pretty interesting as far as like, when you have a description, being able to provide the actual agenda items from the meeting from the description, that you have. So that's pretty interesting, as well as like a separate meeting notes that are a separate super tag, different from the meetings tag, so that they're linked together, much like projects and to-dos or projects and tasks. So I think that's pretty interesting to kind of level up that a little bit if you wanted to be able to, again, depending on how you run your meetings, provide a little less friction in the process.
We would probably need to have some sort of example meeting to see it. Or perhaps you have something in your setup that you would like to show in there, if that's easier for you.
Possibly, yeah. My connection's been dropping a few times when I've been sharing my screen, so I don't know if that would happen again. But yeah, that's one we could look at or even revisit later on. Is a good one.
Here I
And
see. You mean the meeting and the meeting note?
yeah,
So if we go into the meeting, I guess this is his core meeting tag.
yep.
Attendees, some resources, and I guess this is where the meeting note goes. Yes.
That's where the meeting note goes, and then if you put a description in there as well, and under that node, that's where that brief, where the meeting AI comes into play as well
This
too
one.
for it. So yeah.
And then the AI, is that the brainstorm
Brainstorm
agenda?
meeting agenda. Yeah.
Got it. So if I press that one, something, if this
You got to have a
fields
description in there.
here, this one.
Yeah. So yeah.
Let's see what it comes up with. Probably it would require a little bit more context than just this, but we'll see. Where does it go normally?
It typically creates some items.
In under here.
Yeah.
But it probably,
it needs a little more.
It needs some sort of interesting. Well, maybe we can just pop this in there.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
That one. There we go. Let's see if something else goes in there. Still not.
It creates a new, I think if you collapse some of those, I forget where it puts it, but maybe it's a little bit further. Let's see.
Yeah, it could also be because this, of course, is not like
Oh,
I'm
that's
running it
true. Yeah.
in this thing, so it might not be the part. So in the core, what you're looking for is to have the AI help you create with the agenda points.
Hmm.
Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
maybe even having, like links to some resources, the related agenda items and the notes, again, providing that kind of interconnectedness between those things. So I can go off and create some notes somewhere else and then they link to this meeting as well
To
as having
link
the
to the meeting. So in this case,
Mhm.
yeah. So and this one is related to, and that's a project and a meeting in this case. Yeah,
Mhm.
got it. Yeah, and that's this one. Yeah, and that's why it's blank. It's the test meeting. I'm guessing this will fill up this one. Yeah,
Yeah. And then
there we
if you
go.
put it, attendees in, it'll have like, Andre, Trey, Jeremy.
Try. There we go. Yeah, and then everything, of course, is linked together.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the main thing here is that in my meeting tag, I think the core is that you just put all of the notes here. Um,
Freeform. Right.
Free
Yeah.
form. And I guess the cool part here is that if multiple people all make notes of the meeting, you have the multiple perspectives of the notes in this case, and you have some extra resources. Yeah, I think the getting stuff sort of interconnected is actually not that much of a trick in Tana. That's the whole bread and butter of many of these things. So if we simply want to add more notes, I would say just create a field with notes and upgrade it to the template field in this way. And you can change it into something like, hey, we're going to add a meeting note in a similar way and just copy these things over. And it really depends on really what you want to put in there and how you want to attach everything together. Um, but I'm a little bit thinking like what is cool to show here, or what can we sort of like integrate easily, um, and how to add these things, because adding these things separately, I'm not quite sure it's that much of a challenge also for you anymore, right? Adding these
Hmm.
fields.
Yeah. Correct. Correct. Yeah. Probably not so much there. Um, Yeah, and the button we've seen kind of how to do that and playing around with the AI. So I think that that's pretty straightforward. Um, the other thing might be maybe enhancing some of the linkages between the to dos and the projects.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there's probably more there that we could show potentially that would.
That would be an interesting. So we're gonna go and stick back to the to-dos. We'll go into the task. Oh, this is one of the things I miss so much. Like all of the other nodes, you can click here and it will zoom in, but not this one.
No.
You can actually do this zoom full page and then you'll get there. But yeah, it's sometimes it's little inconsistencies that are difficult for me. So
Yes.
let's look into the project task. So as you can see, there is a project field here. And let's create a new project for this case. Let's say Trey's project, tag it as a project. And you also see these move to library buttons. Like one of the things I notice a lot, if I create a project here, it stays here. And then if I inadvertently, for some reason, delete this to do, the entire project gets deleted with it. It's not fully gone because it's in the trash, and in Tana you rarely lose anything, but it's annoying because sometimes it means you cannot find it anymore. And this button is simply something that's in Orbital. You can link it, you can easily copy it or steal it from Orbital and put it on your own. And it basically says if something is not in your library, show the button to put it in the library. And this is a clear example of a node filter here again. If you look at how it's implemented, it's simply if it's not in the library, show the button.
I love that. Yeah, it's
Very
actually super
simple.
handy.
Yeah. So let's put it in the library, and then you get this little notification that it actually moved to the library. And you can see that I did add some interconnectedness, because if you can look here, you can see, hey, we have some tasks and we have some sub-projects. Because again, a project can have another project. Unfortunately, I'm not able to filter out the project itself because Tana doesn't do that yet. So it's always everyone is its own sub project. But yeah, it's just something we have to suffer in the meantime. So the interconnectedness of tasks and projects. So I'm assuming you want more than just linking a task to a project.
Right. And with projects, we can have, the status of a project. We can have due dates. We could have, additional nodes that talk about like priorities of this project, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is like a front burner item. This is a
Yeah.
rear burner item. This is 4 flames. This is 2 flames, those types of things. And then maybe even linking to overall goals that you have, right? So this
Yeah.
project is tied to like my work. This is tied to personal. This is tied to, this. And so it makes it just more comprehensive when it comes to project management. And maybe this is something I was wondering, and I'm putting you on the spot because we haven't talked about this, but wondering if there's also a way maybe to even show progress of a project based on like the number of tasks completed. So I've done 5 of 10 tasks. I'm 50% completed. Is there some way to see that?
There's a very hacky way to do it in Tana currently, but I wouldn't really recommend it. And I saw
Okay.
some early designs of them working on something like this natively. So it's coming. That you
Okay.
can see like, hey, this is sort of a node and it has 6 tasks in it, and 5 of them are completed and 2 not. Then it will show you the progress. So it will be coming. So I don't recommend trying to build it sort of like build it manually now. What we can do is very easily say, hey, do the project status things overlap with the status of a task? Because you can also say like, hey, maybe we should just add the status field that we actually added to do
Mhm.
to projects, because sometimes these things overlap quite a bit, and then you have also in progress. But I don't know if there will be others in this case. Do you feel like these would match for projects?
I think in some cases, or you could tweak them for sure. And then I think one of the things that was in the other template that you were able to do within a project is once you create it, one of the nodes or fields that you have is like there's a project dashboard actually baked into the tag
Mm-hmm.
so that you can see like here's a list of all the tasks in this project. Here's a Kanban view board of it, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And meetings and agenda and notes and whatever else may
Anything
be in there.
connected to it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I try to do that here. So you have tasks connected to it, but not all of the other stuff. And again, that sort of like the dashboard model is very similar in this case, because you could simply convert this again to a dashboard that is
Mm.
underneath here. And that might be a better sort of way to do it. So perhaps we can show in this case, we would simply say we'll have the dashboard. Um, and again, this is a view as tabs. And what we're going to do is we're going to just take the tasks, we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it underneath it. Can we? Oh, no, no, no. Let's start again. Dashboard, and we're going to copy and paste. Spelling is an ongoing issue.
Me
And
too.
then we go to here, tabs. And then we have the early beginnings already, right? So in this case, like this is very annoying actually that you cannot, because I wanted to copy and paste all of these.
Yeah.
You cannot simply do that and put them there. And then we're going to go back into the tabs view. And then we're already a little bit closer. And then we make this a heading. And again, you can put this inside, of course, the super tag. Then you are very close to having your own dashboard here. There's also some other ways. You can also have very nice, like the side menu is also good for these kinds
Oh,
of
yeah.
situations. Or you can even say, I'm going to make these automatic subnodes of project. And I'm going to make the entire project get a different kind of view. But I'm not sure if that sticks yet. I tried that before. If you make this entire thing a side menu, yeah. Then you have these things like you can move each of these up a layer and say there, there, and there. And then you see that, okay, the dashboard is no longer needed. And then we basically have this in every project on the side like this.
Hmm.
And then you
Interesting.
can
Yeah, I like
make
that.
your own little sort of like your little application this way. Basically, then in this case, I would remove, for instance, the parts on the side because then they are no longer needed. and add this entire thing, these things into the super tag itself. So you can really like do it like this. Okay, let's start with tasks, then meetings and sub-projects. And now it should look the same for every single one of these projects. And you have these things here. What's interesting is that if you do this, did you notice that all of the fields are now hidden?
Oh yeah.
So I'm guessing this is not probably the recommended way. Let's keep showing it as a list. Apparently, does not really play nice together. There's so many things in Tana that you sort of run into and say, yeah, this works, but then the massive amount of combinations must run into issues someplace. And now you also see that the status one is underneath. It's also interesting. Yeah. So yeah, this is an easy way to sort of like have different dashboards and stuff like that. But I've shown you most of how these sort of like the core components work together and work together. And again, like stuff like adding a status or adding an area, which you mentioned briefly before, like having a personal work and these kinds of things. And the previous one I showed you, area, for instance, I showed you options as in hard-coded options, but you can also have, for instance, options from a super tag. And in this case, if we have something like an area super tag, so let's say we create personal, and that's an area. Let's create an area, and work, and that's an area. Oh, tag area. Now, if we go to Trey's project, and again, we're going to configure the field. We have the options from super tag, and we select the area. Now, what would happen is that you automatically get everything you tagged with area as an option. And the interesting part is that what I use a lot with projects is that there's this very cool option here. If you select to ancestor with the same field, this one, to value from ancestor with this field, this means that it automatically sets the area to sort of the thing above it. So if we add a to-do, and we also want to have an area on to-dos, in this case, and we're going to add this to the template. Now, if we make a new to-do, you can see that the area is blank. But if we make a to-do and we set this to personal, and now we make that to-do, it will be also personal.
Oh.
Because it's nested under a project that is also personal. And that's what that does, that configure field to value from ancestor with field. You also can do it under to an ancestor. And that means that if one of the nodes on top of it is an area, it will add that. And I use this a lot with meetings, for instance, because if I tag the meeting as in a specific area, all of the to-dos and projects that I create underneath it will also sort of inherit that.
Yeah, I've seen that before as well, and that's super convenient.
Yeah, so that's something that that helps a lot in these kinds
Yeah,
of
especially if
cases.
you're creating things in bulk, right? Like
Yeah.
you're talking about, where I can just
Yeah.
add some things, they automatically get assigned that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, especially here with the projects, that's where I have a lot of the to-dos auto-link to the right project. I think this also happens here. Yeah, the project is also automatically set. And what I've recently been doing is these are all extended from nothing now. But what I've been doing is in my own setup, and I haven't really ported it, if I've created something called context. And it means that a project can be a context, a person can be a context, a meeting can be a context. And that means that I can very easily link everything together under a specific context. And that means that when you go into, for instance, a project, you can see with the references underneath here, everywhere where it's nicely connected as a context. And then it also, because if the field is named context, the inheritance works really nicely because you can keep using it in the same way.
Very nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, this is like the basic structures, I think. Yeah, it's always tricky to see like, hey, how can we go in and copy everything? I think the main challenge here is that as soon as you know the basic building blocks, most of the stuff is not so hard to copy over. And I would also recommend most people to start very simple and to use, perhaps not even use Orbital or Studio OS, but only bring in little pieces that you do understand and slowly move up, because it's very tempting to just take all of these things in, because from the outside they look very cool. But from my experience, if the system is too complicated, I stop using it. At least that's my personal preference. To slowly build up more and more and more as you feel comfortable with it, and also to remove stuff that you don't use. I think that's equally important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's great advice. Yeah, that was very helpful seeing that. Just kind of, again, how the building blocks, like you said, once you understand that, being able to, use that to bring things in and deconstructing how things are done. And, that's been very helpful for me is looking, for example, at your template and seeing kind of like, reverse engineering, like how did he create this? This is so cool. And, what are some other ways that we can use some of that? So yeah, thank you for sharing all this.
You're very welcome. Is there anything else I can explain to you, or do you think this is it?
No, I think this is it. This has been fantastic and very enlightening. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to walk through this and show some of the behind the scenes and how to do some of these. I learned so much from this. I'm going to go back and rewatch this later.
Yeah, it's always like it's quite difficult to keep track of everything that is happening. But yeah, stick with it. It's super powerful, Tana, and I realize that like as you get more and more comfortable with it, it's almost like magic how much it unlocks. Like the building blocks are so powerful, and you can use it in so many different ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Andre.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to do this and for willing to be on the camera with me while while we go through everything. And well, that concludes the episode for today. Thank you.